Not many people know this, but the modern notion of human rights, and when I say the modern notion of human rights, I mean the pre-woke notion of human rights, was actually invented by Afrikaners whose politics were shaped by the Boer War, a war their people fought for an independent Boer republic. The historical origins of the idea of human rights as we know it today, which forms the basis of current international law, originated right here in South Africa, and specifically among the Boers who once fought against British imperialism. As the Allied forces emerged victorious in the Second World War, delegates from 50 different nations gathered in San Francisco, California, to draft and eventually adopt what would become the founding document of the United Nations, the Charter of the United Nations. The Charter officially brought the United Nations into existence when it was ratified and came into force on the 24th of October 1945. The Charter serves as the foundational document of contemporary human rights, and since then, the United Nations has served as the major authoritative international organization tasked with maintaining peace between the nations, upholding human rights around the world, facilitating global cooperation, and providing a common institutional framework for managing international political, international law, economic and humanitarian affairs. The one man primarily responsible for establishing the entire human rights legal framework also happened to be one of the heroes of the Anglo-Boer War. A man who, although controversial in South Africa amongst both the black people here as well as the Afrikaners who might seem as a little bit too liberal, was at one point willing to put his life on the line for the sake of the independent Boer Republic in Southern Africa. This man, Jan Smuts, was quite a remarkable figure. Stay tuned because in today's video we are going to highlight what to many would be a most uncomfortable truth regarding the origin of the United Nations, international law, and what we have come to know as human rights in the modern sense. You see, 1945 was truly a major turning point in the history of the world. With the defeat of the Axis powers of Japan, Italy and Germany, the nations of the world came together to establish the post-war system of international cooperation. The United Nations Charter was vital in terms of establishing this framework for this new dispensation globally. And in its preamble, it expressly states that it affirms fundamental human rights in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and of all nations, large and small. Over the past 80 years since then, the United Nations has gone on to become the central institution of the post-war international order. Through its various agencies and councils, courts and resolutions, it has played the most major role in international diplomacy, humanitarian relief, peacekeeping operations, refugee assistance, global health campaigns, decolonization efforts, sanctions regimes, and the development of international law as a whole. The organization has overseen hundreds of peacekeeping missions, coordinated international responses to many wars and disasters, promoted treaties on everything from nuclear weapons to climate change, and increasingly positioned itself as the moral and legal authority on questions of human rights and global governance. Today, the United Nations has 193 member states, with the newest member being South Sudan, which joined in 2011. Almost every internationally recognized state is a member of the United Nations, with only a handful of exceptions such as Taiwan, Kosovo, Somaliland and North Korea. And so the entire lifetimes of most everyone watching this video, the United Nations has served as the highest institutional expression of the international order and international law itself. An organization embodying the international consensus on questions such as peace, sovereignty, human rights and legitimacy, as well as, of course, international human rights law. But the reality that makes many, especially those on the left, very uncomfortable is that the very foundations of the United Nations, and by extension the very legal foundations of modern human rights, were established by people who openly and unashamedly promoted ethno-nationalism and, as in the case of the famous South African Prime Minister Jan Smuts, for example, even fought a war for independent Boer republics in Southern Africa. Smuts had already played a major role after the First World War in the creation of the League of Nations, and in 1945 he became the single most influential voice involved in drafting the foundations of the new United Nations human rights framework as well as early international law. In fact, Smuts is widely credited with drafting the UN Charter's preamble itself, including the very vocabulary used surrounding human rights in international law today and the dignity of mankind. In a recent paper, two human rights professors at the University of Pretoria, Willem Gravett and Christoph Heinz, described Smuts as the one person directly responsible for the recognition of international human rights as a founding value in the Charter of the United Nations. Yet, Smuts did not develop his theory of human rights in isolation. Several other Afrikaner intellectual and political influences helped shape this worldview, most notably his Deputy Prime Minister Jan Hofmeyr. Hofmeyr, whose father died when he was still a toddler, was raised by his mother, Deborah, who was a first cousin to the famous Boer general who fought alongside Smuts in the Anglo-Boer War, Christian Beyers. Hofmeyr's influence on Smuts's thinking when it comes to human rights was amplified in the biographer Alan Patton's work on Jan Hofmeyr's legacy. In his 1964 biography entitled Hofmeyr, published by Oxford University Press, Patton highlights how Smuts's views on nationhood and the relations between races and peoples or nations were fundamentally shaped by Jan Hofmeyr during the 30s and 40s. In this way, the human rights framework eventually accepted by the United Nations at its founding, for which Smuts was primarily credited and responsible, was therefore undoubtedly influenced by Hofmeyr. Yet, this very framework was one in which the notion of the very Afrikaner nationalism still played a decisive role. Following his first term as Prime Minister, Smuts delivered a famous lecture at Oxford University as part of a series of Rhodes Memorial Lectures. In this speech, Smuts strongly maintained that, and I quote, "the British Empire does not stand for assimilation or integration of its peoples into a common type. It does not stand for standardization, but for the fullest, freest development of its peoples along their own specific lines," obviously meaning racial or ethnic lines. It is not only the training in self-government that will be beneficial. The peoples will develop a sense of responsibility, which goes with it, and which in itself one of the most valuable lessons of life. These historical facts testify unequivocally to the fact that the men who invented the legal framework for international human rights law were Afrikaners, whose political theory was largely shaped by a sense of nationalist identitarianism, as well as their own military struggles and the struggles of their families for self-determination in an independent Boer republic in South Africa. And what is more, the very international system which today constantly speaks in the language of universal human rights simultaneously recognizes self-determination as envisioned by these Boer generals as one of its own highest and most central legal principles within human rights law or international human rights law. The UN Charter itself explicitly affirms in Article 1 the principle of the self-determination of peoples or nations, while both the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights as well as the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights begin with the exact same declaration as written by Jan Smuts. All peoples have the right of self-determination. In other words, the modern international human rights framework established under the United Nations explicitly recognizes the collective right of peoples and nations to determine their own political future, govern themselves in their own territory, and preserve their distinct national existence. Human rights consistently applied necessitate the right to ethnic self-determination. The very right that the MK Party now wants to remove from our constitution here in South Africa. Check out our recent video on that development by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right here. And support us in our cause to continue producing well-researched videos such as this by becoming a paying member of the Willem Petzer Group. Invest in us by simply following these easy steps on the banner below. Goodbye and God bless.